car insurance. This is not a topic that we talk about every single day. It's not a topic we talk about every single month. Usually when we're talking about our car insurance, it has to do with the renewal. And we're not looking at the coverages of the renewal. We're looking at the price of the policy. Now, what if I told you that looking at your insurance more regularly can actually protect your retirement, your wages, and your financial future? Like most people, you think, yeah, right. I used to think the same thing. That wasn't until 2012. In 2012, I obtained my Arizona personal lines insurance license. And since then, I've been learning everything that I can about insurance and why it's so important. Why is it mandated by law? And here are some things that I found that were really fascinating. We're going to go over some facts and we're going to take a look and see if we can find out why it's so important. Looking at this information here, we can see that in 2013, according to the Rocky Mountain Insurance Information Association, there was 5.6 million police-reported motor vehicle accidents. Now that's just police reported. That doesn't mean that that's all that happened in the United States. Out of that 5.6 million reported crashes, 32,000 people lost their lives. Now luckily, that number came down by about 3% from 2012. Out of the 5.6 million police-reported accidents, out of those, 1.5 million accidents caused injuries, and 4 million were property damage alone. Now, a startling fact is, according to the ISO, the average bodily injury claim was $15,443. Now, that number is going to be really important, and we'll see in just a moment why. But our goal today is not to sell you insurance. I don't want to get you to buy a policy from me. That's not what we're here to do today. What we're here to do today is review the liability coverage that is state required, the options that you have for it, and why that's going to protect your financial future. So now that we know what our point of today is, let's dive right into what insurance entails. First thing that you have is your liability protection. Your liability protection is essentially your legally responsible payment for damages that you've caused to others through an at-fault accident. Now this is broken into two elements. You have your bodily injury and you have your property damage. We're going to focus on the bodily injury first. Bodily injury is the injuries that you've caused to someone else. So it could be medical expenses, it could be lost wages, it can be funeral expenses even. So knowing what those things encompass, it's really important to see why that's going to be so important for you. And that reason is because if you don't have enough coverage in that section for damages that you've caused to others, your financial future is really at risk. They can go through and take retirement funds. They can garnish your wages. They can bring you to court and make you pay your legal defense cost. They can even go through and strip you of the assets that you currently have. And this is why this is crucial. In the state of Arizona, you have two options when it comes to your insurance. You could either show proof of liability insurance, that's car insurance. Or if you have $40,000 just lying around, you can tuck that into an insurance bond and file that with the state treasurer. Now, if you're like most people, you don't have $40,000 that you can just tuck away. I know I don't. So I have car insurance. Now, the state of Arizona requires that every driver holds $15,000 for bodily injuries that they cause to an individual and $30,000 per accident for injuries that they caused. Now, looking at those two numbers, this seems like it's a lot of money, but let's break down some accidents here. In this accident here, we see two vehicles. Now, in this accident, this is a head-on collision that was reported by the Prescott Daily Courier. In this accident, an 18-year-old driver was in the red truck. He was swerving to avoid debris in the road and struck the SUV head-on. Now, the teenage driver fortunately survived his injuries. However, the couple in this SUV were fatally wounded. Now, in this situation, let's look at how the car insurance would have paid out. If this driver was carrying the Arizona state minimums of $15,000 per person, $30,000 per accident, and this couple's fatally wounded, they would have paid up to $15,000 per occupant and maxed it out at the $30,000 per occurrence total. But what if the family didn't agree with that? What if the family thought that they deserved more money? They needed to pay for the additional medical care prior to passing. They had the funeral expenses. They had other benefits that would have came to them from these individuals, such as life insurance policies. It could have been mutual funds and things of that nature that now they're not going to get because this person has passed away. Well, now they have a right to sue. This person wasn't carrying enough coverage to provide for the damages that he caused to the other people. Now, the second part of the policy is the property damage coverage. Property damage coverage is simply property that you've damaged with yours. So this could be somebody else's vehicle, it could be fences, it could be barricades, it could even be signs, for all that matters. It's just whatever damage you caused to something other than your own vehicle. Now, the state of Arizona, once again, requires that at minimum you carry $10,000 for damage to other people's property. Now, once again, that seems like a lot of money. But let's look at the cost of a brand new vehicle. You've struck a 2015 Honda Civic, and that vehicle's totaled out. $10,000? Not enough to cover the damages to that vehicle. That vehicle's running anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000, depending upon model. So looking at that situation and knowing that the average property damage liability claim is about $25,000 according to the ISO, $10,000, not going to be enough to cut it. So why does Arizona require such little coverage then, if it's not going to work? The state of Arizona has set those limitations lower to ensure that drivers can actually get the coverage. That it was the average that they estimated would be sufficient for most damages caused. And they're right. If you look at the bodily injury average, it was $15,443. You have $15,000 in coverage. It's a very small risk that you take on for something above that. But that's what insurance is about. It's about your risk management. It's about how much risk you're willing to take on and how much risk you want to push away to the insurance company. And based upon that risk that you're willing to take on, your prices are going to vary. But I don't know about you, but for me, I'd rather pay a little bit more on a monthly basis than have my assets stripped away because I wasn't carrying enough coverage. So looking at the impacts that having too little coverage can have, let's look at the impacts if you have too much coverage. Yes, you pay more on a monthly basis. You have more coverage than what's needed. But is that little bit more a month worth the peace of mind knowing that in the event of an accident, your assets are safe? Once again, risk management. So now that we know why the insurance is cut the way that it is, I urge you guys to take a look at your policy, see what coverages you truly have. For an example of how to decode your declarations page, I have an example here. Now this is a state of declarations page issued by Geico Insurance. Now on here, you'll see your typical things. You have your policy number, you have your coverage period, you'll usually have your name and information here, but all that part irrelevant really to your coverage. Looking down here, this is where you're going to see the majority of your coverages listed. We're going to pay attention to the first two lines. So we have your bodily injury liability. Now, most insurance companies will go through and they'll list that it's a per limit or per person per accident total. In this case, they say each person, each occurrence. And then they break it down. Now, some insurance companies, they're not going to show that it's in the thousands. They might just show 15/30. If that's the case, one must remember, these are in increments of thousands. So it's 15,000 per person, 30,000 per accident for injuries that you caused. And then it should break down the price per vehicle. Right underneath that, you'll always see the property damage liability. Always going to come below the bodily injury liability. For the property damage liability, you'll see, once again, listed $10,000. Now, your policy might look a little bit different if you're one with a different carrier. Also, if you're carrying higher limits. But it should still break down in the same format. Bodily injury first, property damage second, listing out in increments of thousands what coverage you have. So now that we know how to decode our declarations page, it's really up to you at this point to decide what risk you want to take on and what risk you're willing to push away. And that decision is going to impact your financial future by what protection you're choosing today versus waiting until something catastrophic happens. Now, if you have any questions, of course, always reach out to your insurance carrier. They can always elaborate a little bit more about the other coverages that you have available. Our focus today was the bodily injury liability and the property damage liability. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for any questions that we have.